Her triumphs. I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them. Her trials.
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story.
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why.
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
We're so excited to have you here with us on Her Why, where we celebrate the amazing women who make BYU sports great. Joining me today is Rebekah Erikson, a record-breaking BYU Track and Field star who has most recently broken the BYU all-time record for outdoor pole vaulting. Rebekah, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's fun to be here.
Yes, and you're also an All-American. They recognized you at halftime of one of the BYU basketball games. The crowd was crazy. There was a lot going on, but what was that night like for you?
It was really fun. I haven't really got to do something like that before, so it was fun to get out there on the court, and yeah, it was just really awesome. The rock section was cheering, all excited, so yeah, it was fun.
Do you get nerves for stuff like that, or do you eat it up?
Honestly, I was really excited about it. I'm like, sweet, I get to do this. But then I was standing there right about to come out of the tunnel, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm about to go out there.
Don't trip.
So,
don't.
Yeah, and then I started overthinking things. I'm like, do I wave? Do I smile? What do I do? So
you did a great job. It's such a cool honor. You're an incredible athlete. You're having an amazing indoor season so far. You recently finished second in the Dr. Sanders Scorcher Invitational and at the Cougar Invitational, where your teammate Marin Garnett broke the indoor pole vault record, which is super cool, landing yourself in first place. How would you compare how this season's gone so far compared to last season?
Last season, I started off pretty strong. I vaulted a PR at my very first meet of indoor season last year as a junior, and it started off really great. I was really excited. I had a lot of momentum, and I was right on the brink of making it to indoor nationals. I was maybe 2 spots away, and so I was thinking okay, if I just get one more big jump in this indoor season, I'm going to go to nationals for indoor. And I went to the conference meet, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it was very overwhelming. I knew that everything came down to this meet. I needed to do a big jump or else I wasn't making it to nationals. And there were a few other things just kind of out of my control with uniforms, having to run around figuring all of that stuff out, where uniforms kind of changed mid-competition. Anyways, it was a very weird situation, and I ended up no hiding. And so it was just really hard because I started off so strong and I felt really good about things, and then I no hided. And
so no hided means?
I didn't clear a bar.
Okay.
It means I came in and I took, so you get 3 attempts at every height, and if you clear a bar, you go up to the next height and you get 3 attempts there. And you keep doing that until you miss 3 times in a row. And I came in at a bar that was an easy bar. I should have been able to clear it, and I just didn't. So that was really disheartening, and it just felt really frustrating that I was supposed to make it to nationals, and then I didn't. And I didn't even get us any points at conference. And it's our first year in the Big 12s. I felt this is where I need to come in and, go be strong. And so that was just really frustrating. And then moving into outdoor, that really got in my head. And I was super anxious all the time. I was just feeling really unsettled. I couldn't stop thinking about pole vault, but I didn't want to think about it because I was so stressed about it and just felt like nothing was going right. And so it was just this really frustrating first half of the season. I went to this meet and I didn't know what to do because I started running through. I got this really big mental block. So running through is where you just run onto the pit and you don't plant the pole. And I started doing that all of practice, every meet I'd go to. I'm a big competitor, so when the bar would go up, I would start taking jumps up, but it just was not going well. I've jumped 14 2.5 in pole vault, and I went to this meet in San Diego outdoors, and I didn't take any jumps up all of warm-ups, and so I was like, well, I'm going to go to a short approach, start, really small, and I'm going to just, come in at opening bar, which is super low. It was 10.6. Normally I come in at 13 feet, and that gives me like some kind of comfort room.
Yeah.
But I came in at 10.6, which is, 4 feet below my PR, which is just crazy. You don't do that in pole vault. I come in at 10.6, and I like had some good jumps, but like I no-heighted at 10.6. And it was just this really, really frustrating thing. I didn't know what was going on. I just felt so anxious all the time. I felt like I was letting everybody down. I felt like, I have all this potential. I started off so strong. Why is this happening? Like, why do I feel so anxious about everything? And it was about that time that I started meeting with a sports psychologist at BYU and just talking about like my anxiety. And the thing is, I have anxiety, and it's a great thing. It can be a superpower. Like, I do well in school because of it. I really care about things, and I'm passionate about things. But sometimes it gets to the point where it's like debilitating, and I can't focus on anything else, and it just like rules my life. I'm ruled by my anxiety. I don't know. Have you seen the Inside Out 2 movie?
Uh-huh.
Like I know exactly how Riley was feeling with that like little orange guy just like eating her up. Like that's exactly how it feels for me, where I like get so obsessive about it, and I can't relax, and I can't, because I love pole vaulting, but I can't love it when I'm feeling like that. And so anyway, a few people close to me suggested that I was meeting with a sports psychologist, and him and then a few other people that were close to me suggested that I start taking some anxiety medication. And honestly, like I felt bad about that. I was like, I need to be strong. Like how am I so like mentally weak that I can't? There was just like such a stigma around it.
Right.
And I felt really like disappointed in myself, because I mean, I'm supposed to be stronger than this. I'm supposed to be mentally, like I can handle myself. I don't need the help of this medication. I don't want it to change me. There were just like so many things, and it felt so unknown to me. But finally I was like, you know what? Like pole vault's going so poorly, and I'm feeling so like on edge all the time. Like I feel like it's just really hard for me to live with myself feeling like this. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try it. And it takes about 6 weeks or 3 to 6 weeks to kick in. And it was crazy, because at about 3 or 4 weeks, we had a meet at BYU. And that meet, I jumped, I'd been no-hiding up to this point. I get to this meet, and I jump like 14 feet, super close to my PR. We go to the next meet. It's outdoor conference. I jump the school record for outdoor. And then the next meet, I jumped like, 1 centimeter less than the school record. And I make it to nationals. And then at nationals, I jump like 1 centimeter less than the school record. Like I just, all of a sudden it clicked for me. And so last season was a roller coaster. Started off strong, really, really rough in the middle. But honestly, going on that anxiety medication made all the difference for me. And it just clicked, and I was okay. And I was able to manage my anxiety at meets. I wasn't obsessing over pole vault. I wasn't feeling so anxious about it. At practice, I was able to control my thoughts better. And it really was just crazy to me, the difference that it made. And it really took overcoming that stigma of, oh, I'm like a bad person for wanting to take this. And that's not true. Like it was just necessary. That was what I needed to, bring my anxiety down to a manageable level. So, and then moving into this season, I feel like staying consistent with it. With taking my medication, it just feels like I'm like at peace. Like this is my senior year, and to some extent, I'm like, there is a lot of pressure on me from myself mostly, but also if things don't go well, that's okay. Like I'm pole vaulting because it's fun, and if I'm not having fun doing it, then what's the point of doing it at all? So this year I'm trying to focus on like having fun. Normally I'm an obsessive. There's this website called TFers where we check like our rankings in the nation. Normally I'm super obsessive with checking that every week. Who did what at what meet? And this year I'm like, you know what? Like how other people do does not define me. Like I get to determine how great I jump. And anyway, it's just been such more peaceful. Like I'm not feeling the pressure of I need to make it to nationals. I need to break the school record. I need to do all these things because people are expecting it of me, or I'm expecting it of myself. And I feel like that's just been able to help me relax and feel happier at practice and feel happier at meets and not feel so stressed. So anyways, very long answer to your question.
I love that. And I think that's such an important thing to talk about, that it's okay. It's interesting because you feel like there is less of a stigma these days than there were about you know, anxiety and medication that goes with that.
Yeah.
But it's still, when it comes to you personally, you can still have that. But it's an incredible thing. The brain is an incredibly powerful thing.
Yeah.
And if you can have something that calms it down a little bit. And I think that's incredible. Are there any other tools that you use when you kind of feel that anxiety coming on? Obviously, your medication helps so much. But when you've spoken with a sports psychologist, what are some of the other tools that you use to be like, okay, this is fun. I'm okay. Let's do this.
I think music helps a lot for me. So like having music, and then if I start feeling myself like at all tense or stressed about something, I kind of try to like just dance or like talk to my teammates or just do something to kind of just like relax and remember like this isn't that deep. Like I'm using a stick to jump over a stick. Like this really isn't that deep. I just need to have fun doing it. And so I think that that's been really helpful. I also, one of our sports psychologists told us to imagine when we start going down this, because I spiral. I'm like I'm a spiraler. Is that a word?
Yeah, I think so. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think a bad thought, and then I think bad thoughts about my bad thought, and then I think bad thoughts about the bad thoughts that I'm having. Anyways, and I really spiral and go down this like pathway of like all these negative things that could happen. And so what he said to do when we start feeling that way is put a stop sign in our head, like a physical, like, or not, I guess not a physical, but like really like imagine a stop sign and say, stop, no, and then replace it with like 3 good thoughts or more. And like, I love pole vault. I'm doing this because it's fun, and I'm going to go out there and, you know, jump high because I love it or something like that. And just think like positive things, or I'm a good jumper. I have a good plant. My run is, I'm confident in my plant and I'm strong. Just replace it, because those negative thoughts, it takes, I mean, I've heard the research says it takes 3 positive thoughts to replace 1 negative thought.
Wow.
So just thinking those positive thoughts has really helped, and having that stop sign of, nope, I'm done. I'm done with this spiral. So
it's sad that those negative thoughts are so powerful, right? That it takes 3 positive ones to overcome that.
Yeah.
But I think that's amazing. You're doing an incredible job. Keep it up. You're not alone in your anxiety. There's a lot of people going through that as well, which I'm sure you've discovered probably on this journey, right?
For sure, yeah.
What about, have you talked to like teammates and coaches that are like, hey, I'm going through the same thing?
Yeah, I was really surprised. One time I left my anxiety medication at home, and I'd like run home right before a trip. We were going to some meet, and I left it. And so anyways, I lived right next to the Smithfield house where we were getting picked up on the bus. So I like sprint home, and everybody's like, what were you doing? And I was like, oh, like I had to pick up my anxiety medication. And one of the coaches was like, oh, you could have borrowed any of my girls. Like there's like 12 of them taking it. So I was like, okay, like, yeah,
this is okay.
This is normal. It's fine. So.
And I loved those tools that you mentioned, because I think everyone has anxiety to an extent. Some people a little more severe than others. And I think those are great tools to use for everybody, like in everyday life and things that you're doing. I want to talk about your teammates a little bit. Track and field is a team sport, but an event like pole vault is based on your individual success. So how do you connect with your teammates?
Well, we just try to have fun together. Honestly, so my freshman year, I came in as a freshman. Well, that was obvious. Came in as a freshman. And I came from this club where I was not the best at all. Like all of the girls, I literally went to the best club in the nation. Like these girls were breaking the national record left and right. Like I was probably like the 10th best girl, like not even close to the top. And so I was used to not being like the top dog or whatever. Yeah. Like I was pretty used to, you know, my place. And I came in, and there were 2 other freshmen, and I really liked them. But some of the older girls just really weren't that nice, honestly. I think they were just kind of threatened by us, because we came in and we were kind of the best ones. And I wasn't used to that. So it was kind of this weird thing to me where like, I'm used to like being the worst one, or like, you know, and then all of a sudden these girls are kind of like upset with us for like coming in and taking their travel spots and, you know, jumping higher. And so there was just some kind of jealousy, and it was a hard freshman year because people weren't happy that we were doing well.
You're like, just jump higher. Just if you want to go. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that hard. Anyway, I had a teammate my freshman year who I just love. She's so great. She's on a mission right now. And she, as a freshman, broke the indoor school record and made it to nationals, which was like a really big deal. And it was it was just really exciting. And for like a split second, I was like sad about it. Like, oh, like I wanted that for myself. But then I remembered like some of these older girls like haven't been making me feel very happy at practice, and like dealing with like their jealousy was really hard. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a good supportive teammate. And it was hard. And I struggled with it. And, the exact same thing happened her sophomore year. She broke the school record and made it to nationals, and I didn't. And that was really hard because it was like, oh, like, okay. But I think just remembering that we're there to support each other. And honestly, I think the reason I've jumped high and set my sights high is because I've had good teammates. There's three, I've been teammates with two of the school record holders as well as myself in my time at BYU, which is pretty crazy. I don't think any other event really has that at BYU. So pole vault is just, at a really good spot right now. But I think being teammates with these other girls really has set my sights high. And I think that like having a little bit of, healthy competition has been the thing that really just pushes me to be better because, I want them to do well. I want me to do a little bit better, but like I want us all to do our best. And anyways, I just think that that's been really positive. We just have fun at practice. We only vault twice a week. So we vault Mondays and Thursdays. And then the rest of the time we do sprint workouts together and we lift weights together. And it's just really fun to like encourage each other and just have fun, just enjoying our friendships. So,
well, you're all competitors. And so I think that's a real thing to talk about. Like, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Like, you want to be the best. Yeah. And that means against your teammates as well. And so, there's a lesson in all that, right? Like, I don't know, putting others before yourself and whatever, but it's difficult, especially when you're a high level athlete like you are. So you mentioned that you kind of had a bad experience as a freshman with the upperclassmen teammates, but now you are the senior. Yeah. You and Marin, and they're four pole vaulters on the team this year, like you said. And so it's the two of you, and then there's some younger ones. So how do you kind of take on that role of mentoring these younger athletes, giving them a better experience than what you had?
Yeah, so after my freshman year, a lot of those older girls got cut. So after my freshman year, I was like the old one on the team because I was the only one that was like still around, so me and my teammate Kaylee, who broke the school record as a freshman, we were both together and we kind of talked about it and we're like, we don't want that. Like, we don't put up with that behavior. Like, we don't put up with the silent treatment. We don't do like the backbiting. We don't do any of that. Like, we're a team. We're going to have a positive experience. And so I think that we were pretty intentional just about like not putting up with it. Like, we're going to be open with each other. We're going to be friends. Like, we spend a lot of time together. Like, we're not going to put up with this. And so I think just kind of deciding that together and then moving forward with other teammates, it's just been really helpful to like decide, okay, we don't talk like that. Or, I don't know. And honestly, we just lucked out. We have a super sweet group of four of us. I love all my teammates. It's just a really fun group. So I don't even think there would be problems, but just knowing like we're a good supportive group. We love each other and we don't put up with anything. Like,
I love that so much. You're changing the tune a little bit. At the Big 12 championship last season, you got third place, but you broke the BYU outdoor record there. Yeah. And then you qualified for nationals in May of last year at the West prelims. Yeah. What was that like? Because you were just one of 12 athletes who qualified, right?
Yeah. So what they do at regionals, it's kind of different than other meets. They start the competition and then they go until there's 12 people left. And once there's 12 people left, they stop. So normally what you do is you go until you miss 3 bars, but sometimes at regionals you stop. So I took 3 jumps, made all of those bars, and then I didn't take any more jumps, just stopped. And I was actually kind of disappointed because I was like, I'm having a good meet. Like, I want to break the school record again. I'm feeling good. And then we had to stop. But it was very exciting because last year, or I guess 2 seasons ago, my sophomore year, I came super close. I think I was like the 14th spot and top 12 make it. And so it was just really rewarding to know like I'm consistent. I put in all this work. My mental game is on right now. Like I've figured out the mental side a little bit more and like I can do what I need to do to make it. And that meet is like a they put a lot of pressure on you because, this is the meet. You have to do it at regionals to make it to nationals. I'm relaxed and I'm having a good time. Just having all of that mindset was just so nice when I realized, okay, like, I'm doing good.
Yes.
I cleared this bar. I cleared the next bar. I cleared the next bar. Like,
wow.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting.
After all of your hard work and everything you'd been through,
Yeah.
it was finally rewarded, and I love that so much. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Rebekah talks about how she got into pole vaulting and her first attempt at the trick. This is her why.
What's up, everyone? Lauren McLean here to talk to you about another great BYU radio podcast, Big Stories. Host Cleon Wall has traveled around the Big 12 for a second straight season to find more inspiring stories. You'll hear from former Kansas State wide receiver Landry Weber, who gave up his final year of eligibility to follow a call from God. And then there is Maddie McLaughlin, who after a 3-year battle with Lyme disease, played volleyball for Arizona State and is now playing pro volleyball. And then there is Baylor graduate Jimmy Dorrell, who founded Church Under the Bridge to serve the homeless in Waco, Texas. All these great stories and more on Big Stories. So check out Big Stories on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to Her Why. I'm Lauren McLean here with BYU pole vaulter Rebekah Erikson. You mentioned in a BYU Sports Nation interview that your family is not super athletic, excluding your husband and sister-in-law.
Yeah.
So how did you get into sports?
So when I was growing up, I was homeschooled, and one of our little homeschool classes that we could do was a gymnastics class. And when I was like, I was 4, and my older brothers got to go to it, and so I got to go to it. And I would climb up to the top of the rope, and it was maybe, 20, 30 feet up there. So pretty high for like a 4-year-old to be climbing. And so anyway, my mom was like, oh, she's like pretty good at this. So she put me in gymnastics, and I did competitive gymnastics. I was getting ready to compete level 8, and then I had a wrist injury when I was about 10. And that was kind of like my first love. I thought, maybe this is what I'm going to do in college, which is, and in gymnastics, you really have to be in the mindset of that at a young age because you have to be so good, so young. And so I was like pretty much on track for that. If I kept at the pace, I would have been a level 10, right about the time that you need to be to make it to college. And so I was really disappointed because I love gymnastics, but obviously my future with my tissue in my wrist was tearing, and there wasn't really any way.
And how old were you when that was happening?
I was 10. And my mom's like, is this worth it? Like, are you going to not be able to hold your kids in the future or play piano or just like, live a normal, healthy life because you did gymnastics at 10? Like, is this really worth it?
Right.
And I was spending, 20, 25 hours a week in the gym. It was a lot. And it was fun, but it wasn't probably worth, the mental and physical toll on my body. And I had a pretty verbally abusive coach that just didn't treat us well. And so it really wasn't the place I needed to be.
Yeah.
And so I pivoted because of the wrist injury, and I didn't really know what else to do. I considered very briefly playing soccer, but like I didn't have any skills with that. I'd never played any other sports. And so I decided to do ballet for a few years, and I enjoyed it at first, but I just kind of never felt like it was for me. Yeah. Like I wasn't super flexible. I kind of have like a stronger build.
Yeah.
I put on muscle easier, and I just felt like this is fine, but like I'm kind of just biding my time. Like that's really how it felt for most of the time. And so when I got into high school, I'm from Washington State, and Washington State has high school gymnastics, which is super awesome. I'm like the biggest fan of that. And my wrist had healed enough by that point. I think it'd been like 4 years. And so I started doing high school gymnastics. And because I'd been good at a young age, and, I'd kept up on a few of my skills just for fun. And I was pretty good for a high school.
Yeah.
So I would I'd win a lot of meets. And the track coaches came to one of our gymnastics meets, and they were like, oh, like, you should try pole vault. I think you would be a good pole vaulter. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, I guess. And all I knew was like one of my brother's friends did pole vault. So I kind of knew what it was, but not really. And a lot of the gymnasts did pole vault. So I go home and I tell my mom, like, I'm going to do pole vault. And she's like, no, you're not. You're already doing ballet and gymnastics, and you've got like piano in school. Like, you don't need to do this. Right. And so But I was like pretty insistent, like, no, like I'm going to do this. And she's like, okay, I'll let you do it for like until your first meet. And if you do well at your first meet, you can quit ballet and keep doing it. Because at that point, I was just done with ballet. It was just not for me anymore. She's like, if you do well at your first meet, you can quit ballet and go all in with pole vault. But if not, you have to quit track. And so
that's a lot of pressure for your first meet.
Yeah. And honestly, my first meet, I didn't do anything that crazy, but I think I like beat all of the other girls at my high school who'd been doing it for a few years. And so it was like, I did okay. Like I jumped 7.6, which is like half of what I'm jumping now.
Crazy.
But I did okay. And my mom was like, oh, okay, yeah. And so literally the day after that meet, I went in and I told my ballet teacher, I'm quitting. I've decided to do pole vault and gymnastics and really focus on those. And I was done. And I really just never looked back on the gymnastics thing or on the ballet thing. So, so the rest of that season, I just kind of didn't really know what I was doing. My high school coach was like a volleyball coach and a dance teacher and a history teacher. And he just he did everything. So he didn't know totally what he was doing. He was great. I loved him. But it was just like kind of experimenting. I really just didn't know what I was doing. And so I had a decent freshman year. And then I went to a camp that summer and I kind of figured out, I was doing some things wrong, and I figured it out. And then I just kept going, and it was hard because I'm from Spokane, Washington, and we don't have a club that's on the east side. And having a club is really important because it's a very technical sport, and I didn't know what I was doing, obviously, because I'd never really done it before. Yeah. And so my sophomore year, I PR'd. I had pretty good season. I made it to state. I think I placed 6th or something. But again, with very little coaching. And then my junior year, I went into it and I was like, I was getting ready for it. I was all geared up for it, and I was hoping to break the school record because I was a quarter of an inch below it my sophomore year. And so I was like, okay, this is the season. I'm going to do it. And then COVID canceled it. So I didn't have a track season. But I honestly think that COVID was the best thing that could have happened for me because there was a club over in Seattle, which is about a 5-hour drive one way, so 10-hour round trip drive. And I started going over to that club because we didn't have school and I didn't really have anything else going on in my life. Yeah. And so I started going over to this club in Seattle. My grandparents lived there and they just got back from their mission, so I hadn't seen them in a while. So I got to spend a lot of time with them, which was just the best. And I got to just vault at this club with, as I was saying earlier, I think one of the best coaches in the nation who had all of the top girls, really. And so it was just super awesome because if COVID hadn't happened, I don't think I'd be vaulting here. I don't think I would have gotten the training and the instruction that I needed to vault high enough. And so honestly, it was just such a big blessing. And COVID had its downsides, but I think it just really gave me the opportunity. I would drive on Monday, 5 hours. My mom is a saint. She's amazing. Shout out Sandy. She would drive with me and we'd stay in Seattle for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'd drive back on Wednesday. So it was just this week after week. We'd do that all of the summer of my junior year. And then we'd go a lot of weekends of my senior year. And that really just made all the difference. That's
wow. That's an incredible journey.
It was crazy.
Going from that's just amazing. So I want to know, at what point during all that were you like, I'm good enough to go to college?
So after my freshman year, I was doing pretty well, and I was like, I would be curious what you need to jump, and so I started looking into it, and for BYU, it looked like maybe about 12.6 was what I needed. And I kind of thought, okay, maybe about 12.6. But then randomly, I just had this thought, I want to jump 13 by the end of high school. That's my goal. And so I wrote it down in my notes app on my phone. And then after my sophomore year, I jumped pretty solidly. I was about a foot under, so I jumped about 11.6. And I was like, okay, like I'm really not that far away. Like I think I could really jump, 12.6 at least and get to BYU. So I came to the BYU track camp, and one of the old pole vault coach, we have a new one now, but the old pole vault coach was like, oh yeah, we're interested in you. Like, let's kind of stay in contact over this next 2 years. And so then at that point I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, this is happening. And then fast forward to my senior year, my very last meet of high school, I jumped 13, which was super exciting. Awesome. It happened, and so.
Wow, that is so dang cool. So I want to go through kind of the technicalities of pole vaulting, because from an outsider watching, like, it just looks scary. I'm not going to lie. You're like, oh my gosh, every time someone does that. But it just looks like running, you stick a stick in, and then you just kind of fly, right? So so take me through the steps of pole vaulting. What does it take?
Okay, so with pole vault, you have about a 13 to 14 foot pole, and you pick it up and you kind of step back, and then you start your run. My approach is 7 left strides, so 14 steps total, and then about 10 to 12 feet in front of the box is what we call it. It's like this metal box in the ground. You plant your pole in, and then you want to get the pole to bend. So the pole starts bending, and then you swing upside down. And then once you're upside down, you kind of turn and like get over the bar. And so, and then you fall. So that's kind of what it is. But pole vault's kind of fun because I feel like it gives us like a very well-rounded workout schedule. So we do sprint workouts. We want to be as fast as we can on the runway. And so, we work a lot on speed, and we do a lot of like upper body stuff. There's a very strong gymnastics to pole vault pipeline because gymnasts are strong.
Right.
And so that
which
strong
I never
upper body
put together until you were talking about that. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So usually at meets, you can tell who the gymnasts were because they're doing handstands and cartwheels, and there's like a gymnastics hairstyle that like a lot of girls do. And so like all the girls that were gymnasts have the gymnastics hairstyle and are doing cartwheels, handstands, backflips. And so we get to do like a lot of pull-ups and bench press and stuff like that. And anyways, it's fun because it's like a well-rounded sport, I feel like, and we get to do lots of core and just lots of stuff. So,
Were there any moments where you like fell and got hurt? Because like I said, watching it from an outsider's perspective, you're like, oh my gosh, if they fall on their head or whatever, like you get so high up there.
Yeah.
And then I just can't even imagine like how you even start. I'm sure you start,
you start
short.
You don't even bend the pull at first.
Okay.
Like you're doing it all. It's called straight pulling, and it gets very gradually more bent, and then you go on like bigger pulls and that bend more or that are stiffer, and so so it is gradual. But I've actually been super lucky. Knock on wood. I haven't really had anything too crazy happen, but I did break a pole one time, and it was the weirdest thing because it was a brand new pole. I pulled it out of the packaging, and we tape it all up because you have to have tape to kind of hold on to it, and tape it up. And as I'm running down the runway, I have this thought, what if this pole breaks? And I've never thought that before.
That's your anxiety.
It was just such a weird like premonition moment because I think, what if this pole breaks? I plant the pole, it just snaps. And I fortunately, with most of the time when you have a pole break, you have like enough momentum to get into the pit. So I just landed on like a soft gushy pit.
Right.
But it was pretty cool, honestly. Like it's a flex if you've gotten to break a pole. So, but I've never had anything crazy. I have a teammate who's from Minnesota. And in Minnesota, you have to wear helmets to vault because there was like an accident forever ago. So she like had to wear helmets, which is kind of funny. But honestly, it's pretty safe. Like I don't think I've seen any crazy.
Nothing crazy.
I had a teammate. So my coach is a urologist, and his son was on the team. His son is like an incredible vaulter. He like made it to Worlds 2 years ago, which is like Olympics on a non-Olympic year. And he was vaulting. I'm sure anybody watching has seen this video, and if not, you should look it up. But he like was vaulting, and the pole came down and impaled him in a pretty in a spot where a urologist would look at. And so his dad had to stitch him all up down there. And so that was probably the worst thing I've seen. But yeah.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. But I've never had that happen. So I'm good.
You're like,
we just blocked that one out.
Yes, that never happened.
Yeah.
I love that. So I want to know, what have you learned about your sport since being here at BYU? Because you kind of went through this kind of crazy journey. You had a great coach as a person, right? But not necessary for the technical aspect of pole vaulting. And then you go to this club that helps you so much. And then you make it to the next level collegiately. So what have you learned about your sport since being here at BYU?
I think the biggest thing really is just the mental side of it. I think getting on the big poles, for context, poles are different lengths and they're different stiffness. And so the stiffer and longer pole that you can, or the stiffest and longest pole that you can get on and still get deep enough into the pit, so you're not landing in the box or on the runway. The stiffest pole that you can get on is the one that's going to probably help you jump the highest because it gives you enough like recoil. Like if you're able to get, like those springs that are really stiff, and if you are able to compress it, it springs a lot more than just So that's kind of pole vault in a nutshell. But getting on the bigger poles is scary. And so I think just the mindset and the pushing yourself to be okay with that, with getting on those big poles, I think that's probably been the biggest thing. And the other thing from a mental perspective is it's not going to be your best performance every time. And that's hard because, we travel to these meets and it's like, okay, BYU is paying for me to, like last week we went to New York. BYU is paying for me to go to New York and have, a good meet. And then if I don't do well at that meet, I did okay. But if I don't do well at that meet, I just wasted BYU's money and it feels like a letdown. Like other people could have gone instead of me. But that's not how it works. Every meet is important as long as you learn something from it. And so just learning how to take things from it, okay, that eating plan I just, my eating schedule, that didn't work. Or okay, I need to make sure that this much before the competition, I do this certain exercise. Yeah. Or I need to make sure that I'm fully warm in this way. Or I need to not get in my head when I start. I need to do that mental stop sign when I start feeling this way. So anyways, I think that's been the biggest difference for me is just the mental side of it, because sports really is just so mental. I've gotten stronger. I've gotten faster. All of my lifts are way more than they were my freshman year. Yeah. I'd never lifted until I got to college. So all of that is important. And working with a speed coach and stuff, all of that's been really helpful. And I'm not discounting any of that. And the technical side of things as well. There's a lot of technical stuff that goes on that I have improved on, but I really do think that the mental side has been my biggest struggle and my biggest hurdle, and that's where I feel like I've learned the most about myself and about the sport. So
pole vaulting is interesting because it's different from other sports where when you're done, you can kind of continue, right? Like basketball, golf, whatever. Yeah. Most sports you can kind of keep your toe in. Yeah. Pole vaulting might be a little bit different. So here you are, your senior year. Yeah. When you're done, do you think you'll ever do it again? How does that work?
I have thought about it. That's kind of something I think about a lot because sports has always been how I've gotten my exercise. Yeah. So I'm what am I going to do next? Yeah. I don't know. The window is open. I could do anything. And so I think it would be fun to give it a rest for a few years, have a little bit of a break. I think my body needs it. My mind needs it. Just have a little bit of separation. But I do think there are some clubs that let adults come in and just kind of experiment and have fun with it. Yeah. And I think that would be very fun. And also I would love to do a gymnastics class, an adult gymnastics class. Cool. And see what skills I could get back. My goal is to see how old I can get and still be able to do a backflip. So that would be
I love that goal.
My ultimate goal. So yeah. So yeah, pole vault is funny though because you can't just, go to the church or high school gym and just, shoot some hoops or you have to have $1,000 or $500 to $1,000 poles and a super, super expensive pit and a nice runway. And it's. So it's,
You mentioned, which is super cool, that you already have things kind of planned out post graduation in your computer science. You're a computer science major, is that right?
Yeah.
Would you ever consider coming back and coaching pole vaulting?
I think that would be really fun. Again, probably not for a while. I think it would be fun if I had kids that were interested in pole vaulting to be able to be their coach.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with computer science, it's a lot of the time it can be pretty flexible with like, okay, you can work, a little bit earlier or whatever. So I think that would be really fun to be able to kind of give back. I've had some really great coaches and I've had some really bad coaches. And so I think having the opportunity to be a good coach, hopefully,
yes,
and learn from the good and the bad that I've experienced and make a positive impact on these kids' lives. I think that would be super awesome. So
I love that.
Fun.
I'm here with BYU record-holding pole vaulter Rebekah Erikson. Rebekah, thank you so much for taking the time. You're incredible. I love your story, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks so much.
Thanks again to Annie Robinson and Sydney Simpson for producing this episode with senior producer Cleon Wall. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.